Welcome back to Joy of Passion Ministry. If you've been following this series, you've done some deep work already. You've broken through denial. You've learned to communicate with grace and truth, and you've confronted your character defects, and you made amends. Now we're going to talk about something that scares a lot of people, conflict and boundaries. But before we dive in, I need to tell you about something that happened to me recently that completely changed how I see this topic. Now, I was walking around town and I started seeing boxing gloves everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Like I saw one in the mall, and then I'm walking down the street and there was another one on top of a bus stop. And on that one, there was a writing that said, defeat isn't an option. And I kept walking, and then I ended up going to a store that I don't usually go into, but something just told me to walk in there. And I look at the artwork that was there, and I came across a picture of Muhammad Ali. And it said, what you're thinking is what you're becoming. And it hit me. It was like God was speaking. Defeat isn't an option. What you are thinking is what you're becoming. And then I came across another saying that tied it all together. A friend to everyone is a friend to none. Put those three together and you've got the foundation of what we're talking about today. Defeat isn't an option. You can't give up on healthy relationships just because conflict is hard. And what you're thinking is what you're becoming. Your mindset about your boundaries will shape your life. A friend to everyone is a friend to none. You can't build real intimacy without boundaries. This is a fight, friends, not against people, but against patterns, against people pleasing, against conflict avoidance, against the lie that says, if I just make everyone happy, everything will be okay. Today, we're going to learn how to fight well, how to resolve conflict biblically, and how to set boundaries that protect what God has given you without building walls that keep everybody out. So let's just begin. Our commitment to authentic living. Let me read our commitment again because it sets the foundation for everything we're about to discuss. We are committed to living authentically with others, taking responsibility for our attitudes, judgments, behaviors, and boundaries, realizing our own shortcomings. We offer the same grace to others that God has extended to us. As God gives opportunity, we will share our story of finding healing, freedom, and purpose for life with others. Now notice that word, boundaries. We take responsibility for our boundaries, not for other people's boundaries, not for controlling others, but for our own boundaries. And when we do this while offering grace, the same grace God gave us. Let's anchor this in Scripture. Romans 12 from 1 to 2. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Paul says, by the mercies of God, everything flows from mercy. Everything we do, including how we handle conflict and set boundaries, flows from recognizing that God has been merciful to us. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice. That includes your time, your energy, your emotional capacity, your relationships, your stewarding, what God has given you. And listen, don't take God's provision lightly. When God brings someone into your life, a son, a daughter, a mentor, a friend, a spouse, don't treat them casually. Don't toy with them. Psalm 105 verse 15 says, touch not my anointed ones, do my prophets no harm. You might think they're just some random individual, but what if they're there to bring alignment into your life? What if God sent them as an answer to your prayers? If you toy with them, you're toying with God. If God gives you a person to love and you throw them under the bus, treating them casual, taking them for granted, dismissing them, you need to understand they might be everything that you prayed for. And God takes notice of these things. Relationship is part of provision. God doesn't just provide money, jobs, and resources. He provides people, divine connections, strategic relationships. When you steward those relationships well, when you honor them, invest in them, protect them, you're honoring God's provision. When you discard them, neglect them, or treat them carelessly, you're rejecting what God gave you. So as we talk about boundaries today, remember, boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself from toxic people. Boundaries are also about honoring and protecting the good relationships God has given you. Don't let busyness, distractions, or taking people for granted cause you to lose what God entrusted to you. Do not be conformed to this world, The world says avoid conflict at all costs or steamroll people to get what you want. The world says relationships are disposable, people are replaceable. God says there's a better way. God says steward well what I have given you. Guard your heart, honor my provision. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Your thinking about conflict and boundaries needs to be transformed. What you are thinking is what you're becoming. That by testing, you may discern what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. As you apply these principles, you'll learn God's will for your relationships. Now, before we can resolve conflict, we need to understand what we're dealing with. Not all conflict is the same. Let me walk you through the various types of conflict. There is spiritual conflict. This is warfare. Ephesians 6 verse 12 says, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness. Sometimes what looks like relational conflict is actually spiritual attack. The enemy wants to destroy unity, create division, and isolate you, and that's why defeat isn't an option. You're in a fight, and you need to recognize when the real enemy is spiritual, not the person in front of you. There's historical conflict. This is conflict that's been left unresolved for years, maybe even generational. The original cause of the conflict has been long forgotten, but the bitterness remains. A common example is racism. Nobody in the current generation started it, but everyone's still dealing with the consequences. In families, this looks like, we've always fought about this. That's just how our family is. We don't talk about that. Historical conflict requires someone to break the cycle, to say, this stops with me. Miscommunication or lack of information conflict. People criticize what they don't understand. You assume someone's motives, they assume yours. Neither of you has all the information, so you fill in the blanks with your worst fears. And this is why we've covered communication in earlier episodes. Most conflict could be avoided or resolved if we just slowed down and actually listened. Conflict from violated rules and protocols. This happens when there were understood and trusted rules and someone violated them. Maybe you had an agreement in your marriage about finances and your spouse broke it. Maybe there was a protocol at work and someone went around you. Maybe your friend shared something you told them in confidence. The trust is broken because the agreement was violated. Values conflict, like when deeply held values feel the conflict, resolution may not be possible. Not every conflict can be resolved. Sometimes you have to agree to disagree. If your core values are fundamentally opposed, like one person values truth and the other just values comfort at all costs, you might not be able to find common ground. And that doesn't mean you hate each other. It just means that you recognize the limitation. There's expectation conflict. Due to history or family of origin experiences, we often expect people to respond a certain way without ever having verbalized our expectations. You expect your spouse to know what you need without saying it. You expect your friend to read your mind. You expect people to do things the way your family did them. And when they don't meet your unspoken expectations, you're hurt or angry. And this is unfair. You can't hold people accountable for expectations they didn't know existed. Personal or relational conflict. This is the primary type of conflict we are addressing today. People's feelings are hurt, personal worth is threatened, someone felt disrespected, rejected, abandoned, betrayed, and this is where boundaries become critical. Now here's the truth about conflict. Here's what you need to understand. Conflict is the price we pay for intimacy. And let me say that again. Conflict is the price we pay for intimacy. Healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships have been approximately the same level and frequency of conflict. The difference isn't whether you have conflict, the difference is how you handle it. Unhealthy relationships avoid conflict or weaponize it. Healthy relationships engage conflict with grace and truth. If you want depth in your relationships, you will have conflict, and that's okay. Conflict, when handled well, actually deepens the relationship. And think about a high-impact leadership team. The initial season of building that team, there's conflict. But when that conflict is effectively resolved, it becomes a foundation and the bond cements a much deeper loyalty than team performance or success ever could. Why? Because ultimately, we are relational beings. We're not machines. We're image bearers of God, designed for relationship, and real relationship requires working through conflict. Now, let me give you some key passages here. Matthew 5:23-24. So if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. You can't worship God fully when you're in unresolved conflict with your brother. Go make it right first. Matthew 18, verse 15-17. If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. And if he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you. If he refuses to listen, even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. There's a process. You go directly to the person first, and if that doesn't work, you bring witnesses. And if that doesn't work, you involve the church. And if that doesn't work, you set a boundary. Ephesians 4:25-32. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God and Messiah forgave you. Speak truth. Don't let anger fester. Build up. Don't tear down. Forgive as you've been forgiven. Now let's get practical. When you're in conflict with someone, you need to complete what I call the desire and effort discussion. This has two parts. So desire, what do I want? Ask yourself, what do I want out of this conflict? What would I have to see happen before I would say the issue is resolved? Or at minimum, what would have to happen for me to say that we're at least heading in the right direction? Be specific. I want them to change, not I want them to see my side. Like, what's the actual outcome you want? Examples. I want us to be able to talk about money without fighting. I want to feel heard and respected. I want to rebuild trust over time. I want clear boundaries around holidays with extended family. Effort. What am I willing to invest? You need to ask yourself, what am I personally willing to invest to solve this problem and resolve this conflict? How much time, energy, emotional capacity am I willing to give? What am I willing to change about myself? You got to notice the shift from the issue to the process. It's not just what's the problem, it's what can we learn about how we handle conflict. So ask yourself, what did we learn about the conflict? If we pictured using the same model to resolve conflict with the most important people in our life, what would that look like? What parts of this process would be most helpful? What parts would be most difficult to apply? Now, here's a hard question. How do you use this process with someone who is reluctant to discuss the unresolved conflict with you? Someone who is reluctant to change. This is where the fine art of negotiation comes in. Negotiation is an intentional dialogue between two or more parties until an acceptable agreement is reached. No, you gotta notice, acceptable, not perfect. You're not trying to win. You're trying to reach an agreement you can both live with. To effectively negotiate, you need to know your bottom line. What are you willing to compromise on? What are you not willing to compromise on? If you don't know your bottom line, you'll either give up too much or demand too much. Example, bottom line, I will not tolerate verbal abuse in this relationship. Negotiable, how often we see each other, how we spend holidays, who does which chores. Non-negotiable. Respect, honesty. When someone is reluctant, you can't force them to engage, but you can clearly communicate your desire and effort and state your bottom line and give them space to process and set a boundary if they refuse to engage. You can't control whether they'll work with you. You can only control your part. Now we get to the heart of it, boundaries. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Everything flows from your heart. Your attitudes, your behaviors, your relationships, your spiritual health. But if you don't guard your heart, everything else suffers. But here's the problem. A lot of us were never taught how to guard our hearts. We were taught to be nice, to make everyone happy, to avoid conflict. And now we're exhausted, resentful, and disconnected. That's where the saying hits. A friend to everyone is a friend to none. If you're trying to be everyone's best friend, you're actually nobody's real friend, because real friendship requires time, vulnerability, honesty, sometimes disappointing people, and depth. Yeshua modeled this. He had the crowds, he taught them. The 72 disciples, he sent them out. The 12 apostles, his inner circle. The 3, Peter, James, John, and the 1, John, the disciple he loved. Yeshua didn't try to have deep friendships with everyone. He loved everyone, but he had levels of intimacy, and that's okay. That's healthy, and that's wise. Before we talk about setting boundaries, you need to understand the difference between being responsible for someone and being responsible to someone. So here's the breakdown. You are responsible for your motives, not theirs. Your behaviors, not theirs. Your health, not theirs. Your feelings, not theirs. Your choices, not theirs. Your walk with God, not theirs. Galatians 6 verse 5 says, each one should carry their own load. You're responsible for your load, not everyone else's. You are responsible to love them, speak truth to them, pray for them, honor them, set appropriate boundaries with them, forgive them. You're responsible to people, to treat them with respect, to communicate honestly, to love them well, but you're not responsible for their reactions, their choices, their healing, or their happiness. A lot of us get this backwards. We try to manage other people's emotions. We try to control their responses. We take responsibility for things that aren't ours to carry, and we neglect the things that are ours to carry, our own heart, our own healing, our own walk with God. Boundaries help you carry your own load without carrying everyone else's. Now, let me walk you through the different types of boundaries you need in your life. The first one is physical boundaries. These are about your body, your space, your time. Examples, don't touch me without my permission. I need personal space when I'm upset. I'm not available after 9 p.m. I need 1 night a week to rest. Physical boundaries protect your body and your schedule from being overrun. Emotional boundaries. These are about what you share and what you absorb from others. Example, I'm not going to carry your anxiety. I can listen, but I can't fix this for you. That's your feelings, not mine. I need some time before I'm ready to talk about this. Emotional boundaries prevent you from taking on everyone else's emotions as if they're your responsibility. There's mental boundaries. These are part of your thoughts, your beliefs, and opinions. Example, I don't have to agree with you. I'm allowed to have my own perspective. You can't tell me what to think. I don't have to justify my beliefs to you. Mental boundaries protect your right to your own thoughts and convictions. Spiritual boundaries. These are about your relationship with God and your convictions. Example, I'm not going to compromise my faith to make you comfortable. This is what I believe God is calling me to do. I need time alone with God. I won't participate in that because it violates my conscience. Spiritual boundaries protect your walk with God from being dictated by other people. Relational boundaries. These are about who gets access to what level of intimacy. Example, not everyone gets to know everything about me. Some relationships are surface level, and that's okay. I choose who I confide in, and I don't owe everyone deep friendship. Relational boundaries protect you from being a friend to everyone and ending up a friend to none. Now let me talk about something specific, boundaries in romantic relationships. When you are in a committed relationship, whether dating seriously, engaged, or married, you need to respect the boundaries of God's provision. If God gave you a partner, you need to honor them. And part of honoring them is maintaining appropriate boundaries with the opposite sex. And let me be direct. If you're a guy in a relationship, you shouldn't have other girls filling emotional space in your life that belongs to your partner. If you're a girl in a relationship, you shouldn't have other guys filling emotional space that belongs to your partner. This isn't about control. This is about respect and honor. You shouldn't be calling other women special if you're committed to someone, and you shouldn't be calling other men special if you're committed to someone. Why? Because the words of a man are a crown to his woman, and the words of a woman are a crown to her man. Proverbs 12 verse 4 says, an excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones. When you give away words of affirmation, attention, and emotional intimacy to others, you're bringing erosion to the bones of your relationship. You're taking away what should belong to your partner and giving it to someone else. And here's what breaks my heart. Some people don't even respect boundaries when it comes to relationships. They know a woman is with a man and they still intrude. They still flirt. They still try to get her attention. They know a man is with a woman and they still text him and they still call him special and create emotional connections that cross the line. That's not healthy. That's not honoring. That's destructive. And let's be clear, cheating isn't just physical. Emotional cheating is real when you're sharing your heart, your struggles, your dreams, your late night conversations with someone who isn't your partner. That intimacy belongs to them. When you're seeking validation, compliments, and emotional connection from someone else, that's betrayal even if you've never touched them. Matthew 5:28 says, everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Yeshua is saying it's not just the physical act, it's the heart. It is the intention. It is the emotional connection. So what does loyalty look like? If a guy is loyal, then there is no other girl in his life filling that space. That's a good indication. If a girl is loyal, there is no other guy getting that level of attention and intimacy. That's respect. And when someone keeps options open, when they're entertaining attention from others, when they're calling people special who shouldn't have that place, that's a red flag. This isn't about being controlling. You can have friends. You can be kind to people. You can work with the opposite sex, but there's a difference between being friendly and being intimate. And there's a difference between being kind and being flirtatious. And there's a difference between professional relationships and emotional affairs. And if you're the one respecting someone else's relationship, don't intrude. And if you know they're taken, back off. Don't text them constantly. Don't seek them out. Don't try to be their emotional support. Honor the boundary. Respect the relationship. And if you wouldn't do it with their partner present, you shouldn't be doing it at all. Period. Bottom line, if God gave you someone, honor them with your boundaries. Don't take his provision lightly by entertaining other connections that erode what he gave you. Guard your relationship the way you guard your heart because they're connected. The problem with no boundaries is that when you don't have boundaries, here's what happens. You become a friend to everyone, which means a friend to none. You're surface level with everybody and deep with nobody. You're exhausted from over-functioning. You're doing things for people they should be doing for themselves. Nobody asked you to give this much, but you did it anyway. And now you're angry that people take advantage of you. You're dishonest because you can't say what you really think, and you say yes when you mean no. You smile when you're hurting. You pretend you're fine when you're not. And you're lost because you don't know who you are anymore. And you spent so much time being who everyone else needs you to be that you've forgotten who God made you to be and is calling for your life. And this is what happens when you don't guard your heart. Now, before you set a boundary, you need to do some preparation. First off, know yourself first. What are your values, your limits, your capacity? If you don't know what you value, you can't protect it. 2, identify boundary violations. Where are you being taken advantage of? Where are you resentful? Where do you feel used, disrespected, or exhausted? Those are signs that a boundary is being violated. 3, get clear on your bottom line. What are you willing to tolerate? What are you not willing to tolerate? Where's the line? And then pray about it. 4, ask God for wisdom. Ask him to show you where you need boundaries and give you courage to set them. Now that you've prepared, you need to communicate your boundaries clearly. So here's what boundaries sound like. No, I can't do that. I need some time to think about it. That doesn't work for me. I'm not comfortable with that. I appreciate you asking, but my answer is no. I can help you with X, but not Y. I need you to stop doing that. And notice a few things. They're clear. No vague hints, no maybes, no I'll see. They're direct. You're not blaming, you're not attacking, you're just stating your boundary. They use I statements, I can't, I need, I'm not comfortable. You're taking responsibility for your boundary. 4, they don't over-explain. You don't need to justify your boundary with a 10-minute explanation. No, it is a complete sentence. Expect pushback. Here's what you need to know. Manipulative, controlling, and unhealthy people will often challenge or disrespect your boundaries. Why? Because your lack of boundaries benefited them. They got to control you, use you, take from you. And when you start setting boundaries, they lose that control. So they push back. You're being selfish. You changed. You don't care about me anymore. After all I've done for you, you're being too sensitive. This is manipulation. Don't fall for it. Stay consistent. Your boundary is your boundary. You don't need their permission to have it. Stay consistent, because boundaries only work if you enforce them. If you say, hey, yo, don't call me after 9 p.m. and then you answer the phone at 10 p.m. because you feel guilty, you just taught them that your boundary doesn't matter. You have to be willing to enforce consequences. Example, boundary. I won't engage in conversations when you're yelling at me. Consequence. You start yelling. I will leave the room. We can talk when you're calm. Enforcement. When they yell, you leave every time. Consistency teaches people that you mean what you say, and also accept that you'll disappoint people. And that's okay. Yeshua disappointed people all the time. He walked away from crowds. He said no. He prioritized rest over ministry. He spoke hard truths even when it cost him his followers. And we will too. And if Yeshua disappointed people, you will too. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a human being with limits. You cannot be all things to all people. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:22, I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. But notice he said to save some, not everyone, some. Even Paul, who gave his whole life to ministry, recognized he couldn't reach everyone. And neither can you. See the difference between boundaries and being selfish. Some of you are worried, if I set boundaries, I'm being selfish. But let me clear this up. Selfish is, it's all about me. I don't care about you. Boundaries is, I care about me and you, so I'm being honest about my limits. Boundaries actually honor others by being truthful instead of fake. When you pretend you're fine with something that bothers you, you're being dishonest. When you set a boundary, you're being honest, and honesty honors the relationship. Now, unhealthy boundaries, walls, and boundaries. Now, let me address something important here, okay? Some people set up walls and then call them boundaries. Walls shut everyone out. They say, I don't need anyone. I'm fine on my own. Nobody gets in. That's not a boundary. That's isolation. Proverbs 18 verse 1 says, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desires. He breaks out against all sound judgment. Boundaries are like a fence with a gate. They protect what's inside, but they allow safe people in. Walls are like a fortress with no door. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. If you've been hurt, it's tempting to build walls, but walls don't heal you. They just keep you stuck. Boundaries heal, but walls isolate. Now, some boundaries are private. You don't need to announce them to everyone. Example, you decide not to share a certain personal information with certain people. You don't need to tell them. I'm not going to share my personal life with you. You just don't share. You decide to limit your time with someone who drains you. You don't need to explain why. You just adjust your availability. Not every boundary requires a big conversation. Now, let me tie this back to what we've already covered. From breaking denial, you have to admit that you've been people-pleasing, avoiding conflict, and neglecting your own needs. From communication, you need to learn how to say no clearly and kindly without over-explaining or apologizing. From character defects, you need to recognize people-pleasing as a defect and replace it with integrity and courage. From making amends, you might need to apologize for over-functioning, enabling, or not setting boundaries sooner. It all connects. Now, grab your journal. Here's your homework. Identify one area where you have no boundaries, where you are exhausted, resentful, feeling used. 2, write down what a healthy boundary would look like. Be specific. What would you say? What would you do differently? And 3, practice saying no. Start small. Say no to something low stakes this week. Build the muscle. Notice your feelings. When you set a boundary, what comes up? Guilt, fear, relief? Write it down. And 5, confess people-pleasing. Where have you been dishonest to keep the peace? Confess it to God and to a trusted person. And 6, pray for courage. Ask God to give you courage to set boundaries and wisdom to know where they need to be. And let me bring this home with the message God gave me through those boxing gloves. Okay? Defeat isn't an option. You can't give up on healthy relationships just because conflict is hard or boundaries feel uncomfortable. You're in a fight, not against people, but against patterns, against people pleasing, against conflict avoidance, against the lie that you have to make everyone happy. Defeat isn't an option because God has called you to live authentically, to love well, to guard your heart. What you're thinking is what you're becoming. If you keep thinking, I can't set boundaries, you'll become someone without boundaries. If you keep thinking, I have to make everyone happy, you'll become exhausted and resentful. But if you start thinking, I can guard my heart and still love people well, you become someone who honors God with healthy boundaries. A friend to everyone is a friend to none. Stop trying to be everything to everyone. Choose depth. Choose honesty over approval. Choose boundaries over burnout. You can love everyone without being best friends with everyone. You can be kind without over-functioning. You can set boundaries without being selfish. And when you do, you'll discover a freedom you've never known. Now let's pray. Heavenly Father, same God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Father, this is hard. Setting boundaries feels selfish. Disappointing people feels wrong. But we know you've called us to guard our hearts. Give us wisdom to know where boundaries need to be. Give us courage to set them and enforce them. Give us grace to forgive those who push back and teach us to be like Messiah, loving everyone, but having levels of intimacy. Help us to be faithful stewards of what you've given us. Transform our minds so we can discern your will. In Yeshua's mighty name we pray. Amen. Thank you for being here. And thank you for doing the hard work. You are not alone in this. God is with you, and there is freedom on the other side. I'll see you next time as we continue walking the way. And with that being said, y'all can go in peace, and peace be with you. Shalom.